Okay, so we're going to start working out all the spikes as you can see here. We're going to start doing the tedious work where I got to get them all ready for installation at the end after we're done painting up. So what I'm doing right now, as you can kind of see on her wristband there's some little bit of markings. We have blue markings around the ankles for those. We have some blue markings around there. I did markings up around here as well. So you might not see them too much, but they are there. So what I'm doing right now is I got to get my Dremel tool, which is there, and I'm going to go into the garage when I get a chance and start drilling out all those holes, make sure they're all lined up and correct, and go from there. So what we're going to do right now is I'm going to show you how I'm going to set up all these spikes. It's a little bit tedious. Literally, you're just going to have to sit down, pop on like a TV show or listen to some music, and it's just about dabbing glue and cutting them in half. So this way we can install them after it's all painted up. It takes a little while, but by doing it the way I'm going to do it, it makes life a lot easier and it looks better at the end of the project too. Other things though, we're going to start, working out any other details, whether there's scratches, sort of prime up the item, work out some of the fingernails a little bit more. Make sure everything else is cleaned up, and if anything else comes along, I'll pretty much show you what's going on with that stuff. So for right now, I just kind of want to show you how we're going to set up these spikes. Alright, so as for the spikes, you can see these are just pretty much, like earring or belly button ring type spikes, and these are like these curved pieces here that these screw in to the spike like so. So if you just screw it in and then you tighten it, after a while it could come a little bit loose. And we don't want to do that. And plus this is curved. So what I like to do is I pretty much just grab my glue. This little bit of a glue is going to go a long way too. So you just put a little bit of glue into the threading of that top piece. And then you just screw this back on like so. And if it's got a little bit of extra glue, just wipe it off. It's not going to be the end of the world. And then if you want, you take a little bit of your Instaset and just throw a little bit there, and it's already stayed on, so that's pretty good. And then what you do is you get the other side like so. I did go on eBay and I did look up these pieces, and I saw ones that had straight edges that were straight, but they only had one screw at the end with like a little piece that would go behind the ear. So I didn't like those, plus it was a little bit more expensive to get those, so I figured let me just get the curved one. So then, once we get those glued in, what I like to do is just grab a tool like a wrench or pliers, and just sort of straighten it back out a little bit, You don't have to go all the way straight with it, but just straighten it up a little bit. Now, because it's got a little bit of a curve there now, it's going to help when you glue it in, because if you try to glue it in like with a curve like this, it won't go. But if you glue it straight in, it has a possibility of coming back out. But with a little bit of curve and throwing some glue in there, it works out pretty cool. So you can make life easy by sort of just cutting it in half, but sometimes that curve is a little too much. So what I could do is kind of go in between there, sort of cut it. Of course, you gotta be careful it doesn't fly all over the place. And then what you do on this one is you cut this one off, which it doesn't really matter. You don't want to go too close to the piece, and that flies everywhere. So then what you do is you got a piece of a thing that can actually glue in now, and it'll be secured. So what I got to do now is I just got to sit here and just go through all these pieces, count them all up, and make sure I got enough. Which I don't think I'm going to have enough of, so I might have to order some more on eBay. But I did make some, when I first did do this back in the day, I did make the mistake of cutting these way too close to the edge. So there's some in here that I glued up already that are just not really usable because it's just not enough meat. You got to have something that's going to be able to glue into the, into these areas where it won't fall out. If you have just like a little tiny piece and you glue it in and you nick it, it comes right out. If you have a metal piece that goes in pretty far, it's going to stay in very well. So that's kind of what I do. So I'm going to sit here now off camera. I'm going to go through all these pieces. I'm going to count these up, count up all the holes up there to make sure I got enough, and then I'll probably have to do an order on eBay and get more of those. But other than that, it's just going to make life a lot easier. So, and one of the other things too I did was just make sure that the spikes aren't between the leg. They're kind of like in front of it. So I just got to kind of like maybe make sure that, the spike kind of comes out there so if she was walking it wouldn't hit. That's kind of like the theory behind it. With the ankles and the wristbands, it's different because it's not that big of a deal. It's just a statue, so it doesn't have to be 100% realistic. You can have a little fun with it too. So I'm going to get all these glued up, and then the next step is we'll come back and hopefully all the holes will be drilled up, and we'll see what else we have to start doing for prepping. Okay, we're going to start putting nails to the bat. The idea is we're going to make a spiked bat. I'll add some blood to it. We're not going to put blood all over the figure. We'll just put it on the bat so it kind of gives it a little bit of a different feel. So this way you have one that's kind of like a violent item, and then the other item you put in her hand with the flame. So it's kind of like two different options you can do. So the idea in the beginning was I was thinking of taking the bat down to here, but then it's too close to the face and the horn. So if you put spikes in there, it's too close to the face and you could scratch it up. And then if you bring the bat down here, it just looks like a tiny stick in her hand with a couple of nails through it. So we're going to leave the bat as is. Now the other thing too is there could be a metal rod going up this bat. A lot of times the factories are starting to use metal rods and stuff like this. So if you were to try to like break this in half, what'll happen is if there's a metal rod in there, what it'll do is it'll just split and it'll break all this stuff down and it'll crackle up. So you would have to kind of saw it off. The other thing too is if I start drumming through and there is a spike there, like a metal rod, the Dremel will hit it and kind of turn to an angle. So I'll have to do stuff where it doesn't go straight through, it kind of goes through off to the side. So that's the other thing. So to put these spikes in there, it's really easy. You just go over to your hardware store, Home Depot, Lowe's, whatever. Grab a couple like tack nails, whichever ones work out pretty well that are thin. We'll be using these longer ones. And just have a Dremel tool. So basically the idea is not to think about it. If you want a clean bat and you want it all uniform, you could go that route. But when you think of like, you know, Harley Quinn or something like this, whenever they're going to put spikes through a bat, they're not actually making them look perfect. So you just have them like go at an angle, go at this angle, come down there. Don't go all the way through, have one go all the way through, so you can kind of, you know, go around what you want. Now, they are nails, and they are kind of sharp, too, so that's kind of adds a little bit of extra to this item. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go in a garage, and I'm just going to take the Dremel tool, and I'm just going to start drumming through and making sure the nails go through. And then what we'll do is we'll come back, and basically what I like to do is put like a dab of glue in the hole, push the nail through it, kind of let it sit, and then after that we'll add the blood when we start painting up. And that should be pretty good for the bat with nails. And then I'll have to just kind of work out the fingernails a little bit more, make them a little bit longer. And that should be pretty good for the bat. So let me go in the garage now, I'll work out that, and then we'll come back and we'll just start gluing them in. Okay, so we got the spikes on. I just wanted to make sure while I was working on it that no spikes would actually hit the face or the hair. It worked out pretty well. Just letting them go in different angles, just having fun, letting the spikes go. If it was a bigger statue, I might actually sit there and bend some of the spikes too. like it's been warped a little bit, but I think if I tried to expend any of them now, it might not work out too well. So, well, maybe we could kind of try one on the camera right now. So I think what we could do is we can take this one here, and then what we'll do is we'll take this tool here and sort of bend it a little. Yeah, that kind of add a little bit of a bend to one of them. So we can actually try another one. We'll try this one over here. So just kind of bend it up without breaking anything. So I think that's good. Yeah, you know, a little bit of a bend and having some fun with it. So I think if I added the parasol like we wanted to in the beginning, it would have weighed down this hand too much, and we would have definitely had to have cut it off here. And then because of the hands going this way, it just wouldn't have worked. So I think this works out good. So now that that's in there, we're going to keep fine-tuning her up, kind of go over if there's anything else I need to miss. I definitely got to do another priming session, fine-tuning with some sandpaper, and just keep going. So pretty much we're almost there. A few more things and we'll be ready. Okay, so one of the next steps is whenever I'm getting ready to do paint work is I also make sure that the shipping is going to be good, because I've made this mistake in the past where I paint something up, it's ready to go, and then I realize I forgot to cut the foam with the box. And then, you know, if you're handling a painted item and then you're trying to cut the foam, and then, you know, you could actually scratch it, you could drop it, you can mess it up. So it's better to do that before any paint work hits the statue. So I want to start designing the shipping box so it can be shipped and arrive safely. So the way it's going to work is I have this stuff, this foam stuff. You can get this stuff off eBay. It's really great for protecting your statues. It's not good for leaving in a statue, like in the box, in like attic or in storage. It's just good for shipping one way to get there for a couple days and then take the item out of the box, because this stuff can actually react to paint over the long run. It's basically foam, and if this foam gets hot, it can stick to your paint, so you don't want to do that. But it's good for just, you know, securing something for that, you know, 2-day, 3-day trip. So here's the box with Bowsette. What I'm going to have to do is sort of start prepping this up so she fits in here fine, but I'm going to have to cut with my cutter. This is a foam cutter. What it does, you plug it in and it heats up. Now, this is good for doing like little spots, but if you have to cut like a big section, it'll take forever. So I have like steak knives that I can use to cut this for the base. So I'll make a bigger spot here for the base. And then over here for the body, this should be a little bit easier only because we don't have all that hair. So she's going to go in like so. But as you can see, the tail is already hitting this. So I have to mark this over here. Now, she doesn't have all this hair or a head, so her body is going to be floating. That's where the foam comes into effect. I'm going to put a lot of foam padding here and put a lot of foam padding in her front of her, so this way she'll be nice and secured. So because I really didn't build up the ankles that much, it should be fine. I might still have to cut a little bit, but we'll see how it goes. But this right over here, the tail is the biggest part. But once all this stuff is glued together, and then I put all that foam in here, and then I put the foam up here, she'll be really secured for shipping. The base is just one of the biggest parts that's going to be cut up because I have to, you know, make the base a little bit thicker. And then what I'm going to do is I'll have a slot over here. Once I get the base done, I'll have a slot over here where I could cut up for the hair, and I could wrap the hair in foam and put it in that spot there. But the trick is when you do these pieces, you have to do the top of the base, the top of the foam too, because it's got to flip onto it. And sometimes it's better to cut it a little bit looser and then wrap the foam around it and put it in. This stuff works out pretty well. As long as you have enough padding, it'll be fine for the box. If this was a custom where it's really big, it's really crazy, and it wouldn't go into the box, then I wouldn't even use this foam. I would have to wrap it up in this foam and then bubble wrap and then put it in the box that way. But I think this should be fine only because she had such a massive thing of hair back here that literally there's so much space here that it should be fine for shipping and make sure everything's secured. So I got to cut up the tail first. See, as you can see, I'm holding this hand in the shell and everything while I'll be doing it. And then we'll do the base, and then I'll do that. I'll come back once it's all done, only because it's just going in the garage getting like messy with foam all over the place and wearing a mask so you don't breathe in any foams while you're using the heat gun. And that's pretty much at this point now. So these are just little tedious things that have to be done before paint work, and it makes life a lot easier too. So this way you could just paint it, wrap it up, and it's ready to go instead of trying to do all the stuff at the end. So that's where we're at now. So I'm going to go into the garage. I'm going to get all this cut up, and then we'll come back once it's pretty much all set up and looking, give you guys an idea of how it's going to look. Okay, so I got everything cut up. So the way it worked out was I had to cut up around here for the tail. I had to cut out this spot here for the head. And I had to cut out a lot of this base here. One of the things is when you cut out this head, I want to pop it out now so she doesn't fall. There's a big hole gap down in here. And that's not the end of the world because it's going to be actually easier. When I'm done painting, I could wrap up the head. I could put a lot of bubble wrap down there and put tape on the bottom of it so this way it's cushioned in here and it'll be locked into place. So it doesn't matter that there's a huge hole back there. It actually makes life a little bit easier, so you could just put better padding in there. This right here, the body, like I said, we're going to have to put a lot of foam underneath here so she goes up because the shell and tail just popped out, which is fine. It's better to kind of pop her out now. So we don't break anything, but you can see because of all this hair in here, this is secured. So we just had to cut out this section here, and this worked out fine. I had to cut out here, and on this part here, I had to cut out around here where I built up the chest, and also the leg areas here, because when we put in the spikes, we don't want the spikes to hit this. That is one of the things I was making sure I didn't mess up now. So I had to focus over here with the left hand, and the chest area with the other hand. I had to make sure all the spikes are not going to hit anything. So we're looking pretty good now. One of the things though I got a little bit concerned about was the nameplate. But when you put this on here, the nameplate sort of pops out, but it doesn't go all the way across. So just putting up some nice bubble wrap or some foam here and then putting a piece of tape over this will be secured. So that's just some of the things you got to prep up before you start painting. I will be putting the hand with the baseball hat probably up here somewhere, and then another hand over there. I just want to get her painted up first and then see about how she fits on packing, and then I could do a quick, foam cut here and put this hand up in there and then tape that across, and then do the other hand with the flame over in this section, or I could do it like down there or something like that. One of those things. We'll see how that works out when I'm ready to do it. But other than that, we're pretty much ready for the foam. So this is done. We just got to do a few more little details on it, get it washed and sanded down, and we'll be ready for paint. Alright, another quick thing about packing is the way these Sideshow and other company boxes are starting to ship stuff is they have the box sort of kind of like away from the brown shipper box, and they just put these corner pieces on here. I guess now it's a little bit safer with cushion, and I guess maybe, or it cuts down on cost. I'm not really sure why they're starting to do this, but all the statues are pretty much coming like this now. They used to be just, the box would be right against this brown shipper, but now they're doing this. But I do run into a problem where these start to deteriorate, especially if the item's very heavy and they break at the bottom. So what I'll probably end up doing is if I have any extra flat foam, I'll put it in there. Or if I'm ready to pack it and ship it, basically what I'll do is I'll throw either bubble wrap in between here, or I'll throw like foam peanuts. So it's just something else to think about, a little bit of extra padding, especially since we custom cut the box. The more padding and the more cushion, the better. I went to Target, Walmart, AC Moore, Michaels, any other kind of craft stores I found, and even Hobby Lobby. And I didn't really find anything till I went to Hobby Lobby. But when I went to all the stores, I had the head with me. And I looked in the craft sections, the jewelry sections, the sewing sections, anything that may have like some kind of a blue bead, or maybe a pin with the end of the pin has like a blue circle on it. A lot of the ones I came across from were either way too small, or they were way too big. Nothing was really in scale with this, and they all kind of look really cheesy. Some of them were, one that I did find that kind of would have worked. The head of the pin was kind of like split. None of them were really smoothed out, so I was like, alright, I'm not really going to bother with those. And then the other thing too, I was like, okay, well maybe I could find just like a blue bead, glue them in, set it up, and then paint it afterwards. But this ear here is kind of hard to get in behind it if I had to glue it in and paint it. Plus to get paint there, it's like, it's better to have something where you could kind of glue it in at the end. Now the other thing too is I found these beads here at Hobby Lobby, and I really like this style and they're in scale. They got kind of like a nice chrome finish to them, almost like a blue pearl. But the problem is they're beads that you have string go through them, so you have that hollowness through them. And the problem is, if you glue that in at the end, if you grab the head the wrong way, that bead's coming out no matter what, especially if you paint there. Because if you have resin, then primer, then paint, and then you put glue in the bead with plastic, that's bound to, over time or any kind of way, snag it with a finger or anything, it'll just pop right off. So when I do my customs, I like to make sure everything is secured, at least especially if you got to handle something. So when I went to Hobby Lobby, I was like, you know what, I'm going to make these beads work somehow, and I got to figure out how. So I was going throughout the jewelry section, and they had these head pins here, and I was like, you know what, this might be perfect. So I did a little bit of a test in the store, and it looked good, so I was like, alright, let me buy these. So if you take the bead and you put it through the head pin, it works, but you get that little silver piece at the top of it, which, you know, it's not perfect, of course. You get that little silver piece, but at least if you glue it in, it's going to be secured, and that's what I really want. I want it to be secured. So I figure what I'll do is I'll put a little dab of glue on there and glue the bead up to the top, and then what I could do is just maybe with some like blue metallic paint, just sort of kind of hit that little silver part there, so it's just not as potent. And then I can Dremel with the really smallest needle or Dremel bit tip I have into the ear, so I can actually paint up the head, and I can just glue these two in at the end, and then I'm done. And it'll be secured. Now, you know, if you're making 3,000 of this statue and you want the factory to say, okay, we want these really cool metallic beads to go in, but we want them smooth, the factory can design it where, you know, the beads are pressed and it's got like a, you know, it's got an end to it where they could just glue it in and you do it. And of course you're making 3,000 of them, but I'm making a one-of-a-kind statue, so I'm kind of trying to figure out things as I go and try to find just stuff around stores and stuff you can make it work. Plus, the other thing, too, is not focusing on the earrings. We're focusing on her assets anyway, so I think it works out at the end. So if you're focusing on the earrings and you're not really focusing on the other parts of her, then, you know, we're missing the whole point of the statue, I guess. So this is what I came up with, and I think it should work out pretty cool. So I'm just going to go in the garage now. I'm going to Dremel out the little holes in the ear. I'll do some tests. It should work out pretty cool. And then I'm going to go into the, you know, sink. I'm going to do all my wet sanding, smooth out the head. And then this is all ready to go for paint work. The earrings will be set up and ready to go for at the end just to glue them in. And then we're done with that. So pretty much all this little tedious stuff is coming together now, and we're getting ready for the paint work. Okay, so we're pretty much at the end of this video. A little bit tedious stuff, nothing really major, but this is just stuff you got to do. You can't sit there and just think that it's all ready to go. You really want to fine tune the item and smooth it out. So I have my Tamiya gray basic putty. I have this basic sculpting rubber tool that I use, and I'm just going around the whole item now. Just finishing up everything. It's a nice sunny day, so I'm in the garage, and with the light coming in from the garage, I could see stuff in there that I'm not really seeing with all the light, so it really works out pretty well. So I got a little bit of sanding underneath here. I did some putty work over here, some putty here. We got some putty underneath here because there was a chunk missing. This line work over here, I saw a little bit of a line I didn't like, so I put some putty there. Some more over in here. And I just got to do wet sanding, sand this all down and get that nice and smooth and cleaned out. Same thing with this hand here. I pretty much smoothed this out already. It's ready to go. I just got to sharpen up the fingernails underneath them a little bit more. They'll be ready. I got to do some sculpt work tonight on something, so when I have some extra A's, I'll do the fingernails on this hand. So this will be ready for paint work, so I don't really have to worry too much about that right now. The tail is pretty much ready to go, nice and smooth. Did all wet sanding on that, so that's ready. And the same thing with the shell. I just got to go in there with the sink and just do some more wet sanding and get this all ready to go too. Her other hand with the flame is actually in the garage right now. I did a little bit more sanding on that, and it's primed up and drying at the moment, so that's going. The head, the same thing. It's ready to go. It's all smoothed out. So we're pretty much there. Everything's good. We got the box done. We're working out all the details. The hands are pretty much set up, the head, everything in the crown, everything's ready to go. So what's going to happen now is this might be delayed again another few weeks, only because I'm actually building a new desk for in here and a new table for my airbrush booth, because I'm running out of room in here. and it's gotten to the point where I said we might as well just build a bigger desk and make life a lot easier and do some spring cleaning and get stuff organized. So I think what's going to happen is, at least you guys can see right now, it's just a little bit more of tedious work for today, tomorrow, to the weekend, and then hopefully in another week or two we could come back and we could really start painting her up and get her done. So that's where we're at. I haven't forgot about the project. It's just a lot going on with commissions, redoing the studio, and trying to get it organized and get stuff going. So that's where we're at. So we're going to get her fine-tuned up, and hopefully by the next video, definitely we're going to start all the paintwork.